Okay, so good afternoon. I am Melissa Giles, and this video is going to be about why you are chosen and how we find our purpose. And so I'm going to start in Exodus, at the beginning of Exodus, and of course there's so much more to what I'm about to say, but I'm just going to stick with why you are chosen and how it's possible that we are all definitely called for a purpose, and how we find that purpose is truly how we act or what we choose to do, and if we really trust and have faith and love. So with that being said, I'm just going to start with the beginning of Exodus and then work my way through. So why are you chosen? And so it says in the beginning of Exodus, I'm going to read 14. So, and it made their lives bitter and hard service in mortar and brick, and in all kinds of work in the field, and all the work they ruthlessly made them work as slaves. And so this is actually talking about the Egyptians and the Israelites, and when the Israelites were like, we don't want to be slaves to the Egyptians anymore. And I relate this particular verse as to, like we live in our daily life, right? And we're always working for somebody else. And even at the beginning of time, like right after Adam and Eve, God is like, you really don't have to work for somebody else. You don't have to be slaves to working for somebody else. Why don't you do something different? And so what he was doing was he was showing the Hebrews, sorry, I said the Israelites at first. I apologize. The Hebrews, he was showing the Hebrews that you can leave, you can definitely leave, and I'll show you my power. And so a lot of people are angry at their life right now because they are working for somebody else, and they feel like they're being called for something different, but yet they still want to do what they're doing. They don't want to see the bigger picture. As you can build your own brick and mortar company, as it is here. And so that is why I wanted to talk about that. And then I'm going to go over here to, hang on one second. But we have to work hard. It goes on to say, that we have to work hard for those things. We have to work hard for what we want, right? And so, like when we have a calling on our life, to work for ourselves and start something different, then God will put that thought into your head, and that's when you can either go with it or you can't. But He's going to give you the tools and the way to do it, no matter how long it takes, and you just continue to go with it. Hang on one second. So then I'm going to skip over here to Proverbs. I wrote Proverbs in here because some of this is part of Proverbs, which kind of leads you into not finding your purpose, but how to get to your purpose by changing the way that you think. Starts way off in the front of the Bible too, which I'm not going to get into that right now. Okay, so chapter 6, I'm going to read 1 through 13. Now this is the commandment, the statutes and the rules that the Lord your God commanded me to teach you, that you may do them in the land to which you are going over to possess it, that you may fear the Lord your God, you and your son and your son's son, by keeping all of his statutes and his commandments, which I command you all of the days of your life, and that your days may be long. Hear therefore, O Israel, and be careful to do them, and it may go well with you, and that you might multiply greater, as the Lord, the God of your fathers, has promised you, in the land of flowing with milk and honey. So they have things to do. They're working. They have milk and honey. They have money, the things that they need, right? Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So we have to place that in our life today, with what we're doing within our work. If we're working for somebody and completely miserable and we're bitter about what we're doing because we either don't know how to do something different, or something has been placed on our heart and it gets too tough to change our way or change our ways, and so we give up, right? And so then we never accomplish what it is that we're supposed to do, or even get to that point of finding our purpose, because finding our purpose in this life is hard, and it really takes work in changing the things that we need to do. So it's realizing that God is one. You shall love the God with, I'm going to slow down. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your might. For these words I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk to them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. And when the Lord your God brings you into the land that he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give you, with great and good cities that you did not build, and houses full of all good things that you did not fill, the cisterns that you did not dig, and the vineyards and olive trees that you did not plant. And when you eat and are full, then take care lest you forget the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. It is the Lord your God you shall fear. Him you shall serve, and by his name you shall swear. And that's like talking about like the generations after generations. I'll say it time and time again, that everything that has landed down to us, it all starts from the generations. And, if you don't know the 10 Commandments, I will ask that you follow me on YouTube. I'm gonna teach about the 10 Commandments and talk about that, because it's really important that we know and understand them completely. And then once we understand them completely, to apply them daily in our lives. It's very, very important. And he's saying, and this goes with Ecclesiastes too. I'll read it again, and when the Lord your God brings you into the land that he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give you, with great and good cities that you did not build, the houses full of good things that you did not fill, the cisterns that you did not dig, and vineyards and olive trees that you did not plant. And when you eat and are full, then care lest you forget the Lord. So maybe he blessed you with somebody who passed away or grew angel wings, I like to say. List stuff that you didn't do, so you live a pretty fulfilled life, right? But there's you're being called for something better. So it is the Lord your God that you shall fear, him you shall serve, and by his name you shall swear. And that's so true, right? I feel like I should be saying more about that. For some reason I got nervous. Okay, so I'm gonna ignore that. Okay, so he's talking about the commandments, right? So like I said, I'm going to be doing a video on the 10 Commandments too. That's where you're talking about finding our purpose, or why you are called. Okay, yeah. Okay, so, and it will be righteous for us if we are careful to do all these commandments before the God, our God, that he has commanded us. So no matter where you are, right, no matter what you're doing, it all came down to you. So along those generations and generations, whether you're a believer or not a believer, there's still somebody believing in you or for you. And obviously that would be God, but if you don't believe that there is a God, then there was somebody in a past generation at some point or another that did, and so that makes you already a person of God, whether you want to believe it or not. And when he's teaching, even for the non-believer, he's still teaching that non-believer that you can have something better. You don't have to be bitter in what you're doing in your life, because you are chosen. You're chosen for a greater purpose, for a greater present, a better something in this life, whether you know what it is or not that it's just knowing that you're chosen. So I'm going to move on to chapter 7, number 6. 6, for you are a people of holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be the people for his treasured possession of all of the people who are on the face of the earth. So I don't know if you guys know anything about Exodus or the beginning of Exodus where it's leading up to the 10 Commandments, however, it's very strong in Moses' life where he was called to free these people, if you will, from being a slave to the Egyptians, the Hebrews from the Egyptians. And it talks a lot about in the beginning of the life before they reach the 10 Commandments, it talks a lot about bringing you out of slavery, right? And it's slavery under somebody else. And for the Hebrews at that time, it was for from the Egyptians. If we place what I just read in our time, and what we're doing in our lives, how many times have we gone to God and say, if you just get me out of this situation, then I'll help you. Well, God is saying, well, okay, cool. I'm going to help you and I will continue to help you, but why don't you see things a little bit differently? Why don't you see what I'm calling you for? So that's what he's saying. For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be people of his treasured possession. And all of the peoples here, peoples who are here on the face of the earth. It was not because you were more in number than any other people that the Lord set his love on you and chose you. For you were the fewest of all peoples, right? But it is because the Lord loves you and is keeping the oath that he swore to your fathers, that the Lord has brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the house of slavery, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Now he brought you out of slavery to whatever it is that he helped you with, some kind of addiction, some kind of sadness, something like that. He brought you out of that, and that's leading up, you're chosen, and if you've moved on from that, then he'll use you for that. And he'll also lead you to your purpose. If you continue on the spiritual journey that you're on, he will lead you to the purpose. And when he's talking about the forefathers, he's talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob from before, and that's those generations, right? So now, therefore, that the Lord your God is God, the faithful God who keeps covenant in his steadfast love with those who love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations, and repays in their face those who hate him by destroying them. He will not be slack with one who hates him. He will repay him to his face. You shall therefore be careful to do the commandment and the statutes and the rulers that I command you today. And that's like, I'm showing you, I'm showing you why, if you're going to slap me in the face, I'm going to slap you back. In a sense, maybe I did. Well, yeah, I mean, that is, I'm going to teach you whether you're going to get it here or not. I'm going to get to that here in a second. That will all make sense in just a second. Because he loves us, right? So he's like teaching you and teaching us that we are called for a greater purpose. He's telling us, like, he had a thought. I'm going to use my life as an example. I had a thought in 2013 that I was going to start a business called Spiritual Warfare, finding your purpose and changing the way that you think. However, I couldn't do the business because I didn't know that I needed to change my way of thinking myself. I was conformed already through my generations and generations of all of the stuff that goes on in my generations and generation, which is not good stuff, right? And so, I had to change my way of thinking, and thank God, he was there for me. And, and I still struggle, but however, he's there more now that I've listened. My relationship with him is powerful because there are a lot of times that I did listen, and he knows my heart, and that's because I love him with all of my heart and with all of my soul, and that's very powerful in the spiritual realm, especially when it has to do with God. And when you do eventually change your way of thinking, and you do set back, it's okay. You know, I mean, I say it's okay, and it is okay. But if you keep, however, it's about keeping on growing. And so with that being said, you know, you have to listen, you know. Okay, so moving forward. So through the time of calling you, be saying like you're chosen, here you have an idea. I put this idea in your head, and this is what I'm teaching you from there to now. Like I'm calling you, I love you. So, and you shall, this is, I'm sorry, I didn't even say, excuse me, I didn't even say, this is Deuteronomy 6, 1 through 13 I started at, and then 6:25, and now I'm going to be reading 7, 6 through 21. Let me go back there. Oh, that's the one that I just read, except for I didn't read up, so 6 through 21. So you shall there, okay, and because you listen to these rules and keep and do them, the Lord your God will keep you the covenant and the steadfast love as he swore to your fathers. He will love you, bless you, and multiply you. He will also bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your ground, your grain and your wine and your oil, the increase of your herds and the young of your flock in the land that he swore to your fathers to give you. And I think I just touched on that. Like if you do it and listen, he'll continue to bless you no matter what. And then if you even go further above and beyond and start listening to the commandments, the 10 commandments, which really sets the scene for being one with God and finding your purpose. He will also continue. He'll give you the land of your forefathers. He will give you everything that the generations before you didn't do because they didn't want to listen. You shall be blessed above all peoples. You shall not be male or female, barren among you or among your livestock. And the Lord will take away from you all sickness, and none of you evil diseases of Egypt, which you knew, will he inflict on you. And he will lay on all who hate you. And like, that's really profound to me. Like all of that right there, you know, because in my turmoil of all of the things that I've done, I should be sick, you know, or I should have something, you know, and he didn't do that to me. And he doesn't have to do that to you. I'm not saying that he won't, but I'm just saying, like, for right now, I thank him for that, because that's something really, really huge that in my time of self-destruction, I most definitely should have something. And I'm just very, very grateful that I don't. So, like, my liver is okay first and foremost. So yeah, moving forward, but he will lay them on all who hate you, and you know, don't worry about people that hate you. You know, Jesus said on the cross for the people that hated him, he said, Father, please forgive them for they do not know what they do. And in my mindset, whenever I would start thinking about the people who hated me, that's what I would say. And I would pray that, like, Father, please forgive them, for they do not know what they do, because they don't know the word. They don't know the 10 commandments. They don't know that way. They don't know any different in that life. So I can't judge because I've been there. And I can't wish anything bad on them, nor do I want to. That's the love that I have in my heart. And even when I kind of want to sometimes, honestly, that I can't, you know, because that's not who God has made me to be. And that's not who God is transforming you into be. That's just a behavior that was passed down to us. But we pray for the people that hate us. And that even leads us closer to changing our way of thinking to be one like him, and leads us more into our purpose. And you shall consume all the peoples that the Lord your God will give you over to you. Your eye shall not pity them, neither shall you serve their gods, for that would put a snare to you. If you say in your heart, these nations are greater than I, how can I dispossess them. You shall not be afraid of them, but you shall remember that the Lord your God, you shall remember what the Lord your God did to Pharaoh and to all of Egypt, the great trials that your eyes saw, the signs, the wonders, the mighty hand, the outstretched arm, by which the Lord your God brought you out. So will the Lord your God do to other peoples of whom you are afraid. So, I mean, that's basically saying, you know, like in our time, you know, how many, like I say before, like how many times did he bring us out of something? And how many times did we go back to that same thing? You know, he brought us out of something and we promised not to do it again, and yet we did it again. And, but what he's saying is like, you are chosen. You know, you are a chosen people and I love you. And you have to remember those things that he brought you out of. Remember, like, I love this part where it says the great trials that your eyes saw. You know, I mean, isn't that profound? Like, how many things have we seen in our lifetime? How many things have we gone through? And then how many signs and wonders did we see of God that helped us through those particular things? So that is that. So moreover, the Lord your God will send hornets among them until those who left in hide themselves from you are destroyed. You shall not be in dread of them, for the Lord your God is in your midst, and a great and awesome God. And when you're chosen, and believe me, we're all chosen. And a lot of us are called, but you know, that's what he does. He'll protect us, you know. Okay, so moving forward. Okay, and then he goes on to say from Deuteronomy 8, I'm going to go 2 through 6. And you shall remember the whole way that the Lord your God has led you these 40 years in the wilderness, that he might humble you, testing you to know what is in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. So he's saying, like, he's going to humble you no matter what, because you're chosen. And he's going to keep letting things happen to you in your life until you get it. And if it happens your entire life and you take what you have planted in your heart, your own business, your own company, your purpose here on this life, then it's nobody's fault than yours. But he will keep on working with you, and he will keep on making things happen. And because of everything that he's done for us, how can we be mad at God? And if you take that to your grave, I hate to sound rude, but it's your fault. You know, it's your fault. It's not his fault that you didn't get the blessings that he had for you by any means. And he handled you and let you hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know. And he fed us when we didn't even know that God was there. I can tell you many, many, many different times that I had no idea that God was here in my life. None. Especially in my childhood, and he was. Nor did your fathers know that he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by the word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Your clothing did not wear on you, and your foot did not swell these 40 years. Know then in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, the Lord God will discipline you. And that's what I was just saying, that he'll keep on making things happen to you. Remember, everything comes from God. And that's a hard realization in all reality. Like, it's like, damn, or dang, you know, I don't know how to explain it, because it's like, because I know that everything's comes from God, but the way that you start, how do I say it? The way that you start knowing that all things come from God is you start accepting what he's trying to do, you know, like what he's feeding you. You know, he's giving you all of these tools, whether it be through church, somebody else, whatever it is for you. And he's given it to you, and you're listening, and you're starting to be humble. But you just keep on, however, you just keep on going back to the same old process of thinking. And that's where it all lies, is in our thinking, which is between our heart, you know, it's our heart and our mind. And when we can start realizing these things, why we are chosen or why we are called for a greater purpose, then we start maybe this video will help somebody start realizing everything, like God is there and he is teaching you and he is bringing you and he's feeding your mind with good things, right? You're listening to motivational speakers, you're going to church and you're involved, and so or you're talking to other positive people, or like whatever it is for you. He's feeding your mind, and he's humbling you, so that you may do what you're called for, right? You shall keep the commandments of the Lord your God by walking in his way and by fearing him. Like, we should be fearing him with everything that we do. And yeah, that's hard too. It's not hard. I shouldn't say that it's hard. It's just coming to that realization, because fearing to me for the longest time meant fearing God. It was not being thankful, but I believe that in a spiritual environment, it's not just not being thankful, but it's fearing him. Like, if you're getting into a lot of trouble and a lot of bad things are happening to you, just like continuous, it's like, okay, I really need to start fearing God because he's getting my attention. If I make this decision, if I have this behavior, if I have this thought to take out on somebody else, such as anger, jealousy, or anything like that, then maybe I should start looking at the way that I'm thinking. What am I doing? Because he will discipline you because you're chosen, and he's trying to show you a different way. So you can fear him by that too. And if things get rough enough, then it will, you will start fearing him. Okay, so that was Deuteronomy. Let's see, that was 8:2-6. So now we're gonna go over to Jeremiah. And then he's saying, for I know the plans of the Jeremiah. Everybody knows Jeremiah 29:11, which is very, very powerful. And if you think of it in a different perspective, as I know, for he says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans of welfare, not for evil, to give you a future and hope. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me, and I will find you. And when you seek me with all of your heart, I will be found by you, declares the Lord. I will restore your fortunes and gather you from all of the nations and all of the places where I have driven you, declares the Lord. And I will bring you back to the place from which I sent you into exile. And that's what he's talking about. So at the beginning, he's telling the Egyptians, he's telling the Hebrews, like, look, there's a better life out there for you, right? And so even the Hebrews, they escaped. They were brought out of their slavery. So we escaped, we're brought out of our slavery, right? And then they continue to complain. I don't know if you guys know the story of Moses. It's fantastic. It's a great story. But in this time, right now, it's like he planted something in your heart so that you may have something different, so that you may be going to a better place. But there's still all of the complaining and all the behaviors and actions and so forth and so on, everything that we just talked about. But then he goes on to say, but you're chosen, you're called. And he says, I know the plans that I have for you. Why won't you listen? And they're not for disaster. They're not for evil, but it's for future and hope. And he already knows your heart, for he made your heart, and he wants you to have something different, right? And so, for like, if you think about each book of the Bible, and again, I haven't read all of them, but a lot of them will just talk about all of these different types of people who we are today, right? It's the same: complaining, procrastination, doubting, all of those different behaviors that they had way back, And so, for me, I know that when we read the Bible and place it in today's life, in your own particular life, like, is this pertaining to me? Then that answer would be yes, right? Anything that you listen to, that answer would be yes. Where is it coming from? It's coming from the universe or God or whatever you see. For I know the plans that I have for you. If you have some kind of calling on your heart, you started your own business, service, whatever, you're doing whatever that was planted in your heart, then you do the things that he asked you to do, and they will manifest. They will come to you. Okay, so that's why, we get down and like, he's disciplining us. We're continuing to doing the things that we're doing, but he's disciplining, but he says, I know what they are, just listen to me, right? And then he will make you call upon him. You will call upon me, then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and I will find you when you seek me with all of your heart. So, he knows what you're called for. It's just a matter of working through those things that we have to work on to get through those things that our forefathers didn't get through, right? So that we may be blessed and restored with all of the fortunes that they didn't do, because you are called because they didn't do it. I am called because my ancestors didn't do it. And he will give you everything that he promised then. He will give to you, and that's why it's so important to know your heart and your calling, and whatever it takes to get your brain to work with your heart is crucial to having heaven on earth, because when we're called and we're chosen, that's what he wants for us, right? Okay, moving forward. Sorry, I can go on and on about that. All right, so moving on to Romans 27:30. Romans 8:27-30. So he who searches hearts knows what is in the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose, right? So love is the foundation other than faith. So faith and love are the foundation of this world. And in order to have faith, you have to have love. So, for God loved the world, he only gave his forgotten son. This is like another video. I didn't want to really get into that, but so he knew, he knows who we are, and he's calling us, right? So then it says, for those who he foreknew, he also predestined, right? It's a destiny, right? He predestined to be conformed to the image of his son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those who he predestined, he also called, and those whom he called, he also justified, and those whom he justified, he also glorified. Those are the things that whenever we are called, we know it because he's placed something on our heart to make us do something better, and he disciplines us until we get to that point. But just know that you are called for a reason, or you're called for a purpose, and that's what it is. And so just keep on watching. Thank you kindly.